Disagreements within the G7. The tranquility of the picturesque town of La Malbaie in Quebec was recently disrupted by a diplomatic storm. The foreign ministers of the G7 countries gathered there in March 2025, hoping to demonstrate unity. However, a deep rift emerged between the United States and its allies. The sticking point was a proposal from Canada. Canada sought to create a system within the G7 to track the shadow fleet of Russian oil tankers. These tankers allow Moscow to circumvent sanctions. However, the United States blocked this initiative. This unexpected move caused shock within the G7. The U.S. decision, initiated by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, signals a significant change of course. The Biden administration had previously firmly supported pressuring Russia. This new position suggests a potential thaw in relations with Moscow. Other G7 members met this decision with anxiety. They believe it undermines efforts to hold Russia accountable for its actions in Ukraine. Canada's proposal was simple. It involved creating an information-sharing system to track the movement of Russian oil tankers. The goal was to expose and disrupt Russia's attempts to sell oil above the G7-imposed price cap. This price cap, a key measure of financial pressure on Moscow, effectively limits Russia's oil revenues. However, the shadow fleet has allowed Russia to partially circumvent these measures. Secretary of State Rubio defended the U.S. position. He argued that a confrontational approach to Russia could be counterproductive. He suggested it could jeopardize potential diplomatic solutions to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Other G7 members were skeptical of this view. They argued that Russia has shown little willingness to engage in good faith negotiations. They believe that maintaining pressure on Moscow is crucial. Russia's shadow fleet is a testament to its determination to circumvent international pressure. This fleet, consisting of old tankers, often sailing under obscure flags, poses both a logistical and environmental threat. It allows Russia to continue exporting oil, albeit at a reduced price. This illicit trade undermines the effectiveness of sanctions and serves as a lifeline for the Kremlin. The existence of this fleet highlights the difficulties faced by the international community. Tracking and regulating these vessels requires coordinated global action. The U.S. decision to block the G7 tracking mechanism sends a dangerous signal. It suggests a weakening of resolve to confront Russia's actions. This could embolden other actors seeking to evade sanctions or engage in illicit activities. The U.S. decision to block the G7 tracking mechanism has caused serious concern among experts. They argue that it undermines confidence in the G7 and weakens the West's stance against Russia. The lack of a unified response will only embolden Moscow and encourage other actors to exploit loopholes in the sanctions regime. To effectively combat Russia's shadow fleet and strengthen sanctions, experts recommend a multilateral approach. Firstly, the G7 should consider expanding sanctions to include insurance and shipping companies that service the shadow fleet. This would increase the cost and risks associated with transporting Russian oil, making it less economically viable. Secondly, increased information sharing and coordination between G7 members and other key players, such as Norway and the European Union, is crucial to close loopholes and identify vessels involved in illicit activities. Finally, diplomatic pressure to persuade countries that continue to purchase Russian oil, such as China and India, to reduce their reliance on these supplies, would further tighten the screws on Moscow. The U.S. decision to block the G7 tracking mechanism marks a pivotal moment in the West's approach to Russia. While the long-term consequences remain uncertain, one thing is clear. Addressing the challenges posed by Russia's shadow fleet and ensuring the effectiveness of sanctions will require renewed commitment, coordinated action, and a willingness to close ranks within the G7 and beyond.